as I was then in the industry, I was doing, my dream job, and it just wasn't panning out the way that I, had been led to believe that it was going to be. It didn't align with my values, and the more I learned about myself and the more I learned about the type of person that I wanted to be, you end up having those really hard questions of yourself of like I've worked for, the last 10 years to get myself to this point. I'm now at this point and I'm really not happy. This isn't kind of what I wanted. This isn't what I want going forwards. When you reach that point, just sort of having that choice really of whether you just put your head in the sand or put your head down and just carry on and be like, we'll just make our way through it and hope that the next thing is going to be the thing that does it, or whether it requires you to blow it all up and start again. So surprise, surprise, I blew it all up and started all over again.
Welcome to the Seeking Sunshine podcast.
There are times when life just brings you down, 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 down to the ground. And it's hard when you can't see the light, 'cause things don't look so bright. So now it's time to reframe and retrain your brain. It's time to look for the good. You know that you should. Why don't you join me? 'Cause I'm seeking sunshine. I'm seeking sunshine. I'm seeking sunshine. Oh, oh, oh. I'm seeking sunshine. I'm seeking sunshine. I'm seeking sunshine. I'm seeking sunshine.
I'm Karaleigh Garrison, a singer-songwriter, motivational speaker, and your host of the Seeking Sunshine podcast, where we find the positive in the trials of life. I created this podcast because I believe really deeply that we can learn from one another's stories and experiences. I'm willing to bet that just about all of us have been through some really, really tough things. And not only is it therapeutic for us to be able to talk about these darkest times in our lives, but the lessons that we've learned and the resilience we've shown can help everyone around us weather their own storms from higher ground. On the Seeking Sunshine podcast, we don't shy away from difficulty and trauma, but we always look for the sunshine in it. It's my personal belief that there are blessings in every trial and trials in every blessing. I use this Seeking Sunshine mantra every single day to change my perspective when things start going wrong and getting frustrating, which they often do because I have 3 kids with special needs. And I can tell you that it has transformed my life. And I hope, and that's the whole point of this podcast, that it can transform your life too. Today we have such an amazing guest. I'm so excited to share this interview with you. Kath Grimmitt is so lovely. She's got such a great story, and I loved learning from everything that she's been through. So Kath is an intuitive branding designer for people who help people. Her approach to branding and building brands is more of a holistic way, and it's based on staying connected and true to your values so that you can help people in your own unique way by being yourself. This episode's all about learning how to trust yourself, which I think we definitely need more of in this world. So I'm really excited to share it with you, and here we go. We're going to dive right in. Hi, Kath. I'm so excited to have you here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's dive right in. I want to hear your story and learn all about you.
Yeah, fab. So my Finding Sunshine is kind of personal and business related all in one, which it so often is, isn't it? So I initially was a fashion designer. I did all of the things that you were told that you should do when you're a kid, right? So you do your A levels, and then so obviously I'm from the UK, so it's slightly different for our US listeners. But so I did my A levels and then went to university. I did a 4-year degree where I went to industry and worked for a company for a year between my second and final year. I then got a job with the company that employed me for my gap year. I lived in China for a while with the first job that I had as a fashion designer. And I went off into the world of beautiful fashion design that's going to be glamorous and wonderful and all of that sort of stuff.
Oh, I have to tell you, I'm like all excited over here. I studied sewing and costume design in college. I
Amazing.
adore fashion design. It's so amazing. It's so thrilling. So much fun.
So it's really fab because like it just gives you that really creative edge, right? So even though, you might not end up staying in it, which I didn't, it sort of just really sets you up for just having that creative brain. And I think especially with working for a supplier and then working for a high street brand name, you sort of get both sides of the story. And I think especially with going out and living in China and actually like being in it as well, you sort of really get that understanding of the whole view of it all. So I was all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and living my best life. And then as I started, moving into proper adulthood and becoming a young professional and all of that sort of thing, the living in working in that industry kind of started really misaligning with my values and what I wanted for myself and the things that I believed in. And like as you discover who you are and what you actually want from the world rather than just doing all the things that you're told that you should be doing, because you've got that plan from the age of 14, 15 that goes all the way through to you being an adult. And then
And it's a plan that you didn't really decide on. It's a
yeah,
plan that like somebody told you like, oh, that's what you want. Well, this is how that works.
yeah,
Here's all the
go and do
prescribed
this, go and do
steps.
this. Yeah.
And
And
then
so
that's where you get to be the rest of your life. Ta-da.
yeah, and I think that's it, isn't it? Like once you actually reach that point as well, and you've been in it for a while and you're kind of like, okay, I've done all of the things, like what now? And for a lot of us, we were sort of, in our early 20s and just sort of like, is this it? Like, do it. And then they're like, oh no, work harder and make your way up the ladder and do
And
all of
it's like
things.
go to college, go to university, and once that's done, like that's the hard part is getting through school and choosing a path. Like that's what's supposed to be the hard part. And then you get into I finished that path, I got to the place, and now I'm like, wait a minute. This isn't what
What
I
now?
was expecting.
Yeah.
This isn't the big happy ending that I expected for the majority of my life. And now that I did
Yeah,
all the hard
right.
work.
And I think that's it. Like, you still don't really know who you are once you've done all of that work and you've gone through everything that, you're being told that you should be doing, and navigating all of that change whilst also like figuring out who you are and what you want, whilst also working and trying to decide whether that's something that you actually want to do. And you know this as well, most people can guess the fashion industry is a pretty ruthless industry to be in and things as well. It's highly competitive. And so figuring all of that out whilst working on confidence issues and working on your self-development, or even if you've got that, even if you don't even have that awareness of self-awareness at that point as well, like it just feels like a big ball of, like a ball of twine that is your brain, really, doesn't it? And I think then as you, I found that as I was then in the industry, I was doing, my dream job, and it just wasn't panning out the way that I, had been led to believe that it was going to be. It didn't align with my values. And the more I learned about myself and the more I learned about the type of person that I wanted to be, you end up having those really hard questions of yourself of like, I've worked for, the last 10 years to get myself to this point. I'm now at this point and I'm really not happy. This isn't kind of what I wanted. This isn't what I want going forwards. When you reach that point, just sort of having that choice really of whether you just put your head in the sand or put your head down and just carry on and be like, we'll just make our way through it and hope that the next thing is going to be the thing that does it, or whether it requires you to blow it all up and start again. So surprise, surprise, I blew it all up and started all over again.
Woohoo!
Yeah, like, and I think it's one of those things that there is no right or wrong way. There's no shame in either of those decisions. It's just about figuring out what is the right way for you to do. Please excuse me if you hear scratching. My dog is trying to get
No
into
worries.
the house.
No worries. I got my two out here, and I'm like, if somebody walks by our house, there's gonna be noise.
Yeah.
Right now they're both asleep, but they snore loudly. But what I'm thinking is, you're going through your story. It's so funny how it parallels my own, except for totally different. So my path was like, I went to college and then I got married and then I had 3 kids. And then it was like, 10 years down the road, like, where am I? I lost myself somewhere in this whole motherhood thing. I did all those things I was supposed to do. I went and got a degree and I had the family and I did the kids but then when it comes to having a family, you can't just be like, oh no, blowing it all up.
Yeah.
You have to figure out you have to figure out how to change yourself within that world, and so that's what I've been going through over the last couple of years. It's like, okay, actually I want to be a singer, actually I want to have a podcast, and I want to be a coach, and I want to do all these things. And it's like, how do I figure out how to become myself again within this world that I've built, because it's here and I built it. And so I'm sure that as you look at your life, it's like, well, you spent the last decade doing fashion. You can't undo that. That's still part of you. That's still your background. That's still everything. So how do you use that context to propel you into what you actually do want?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the important thing as well, isn't it? It doesn't matter what your journey is, like, it's actually valuing everything that you've learned from it and then using that to move forward, whether that's career, whether that's children, whether that's a combination of both, whether it is traveling the world, whatever your decisions are and the things that have led you to the place that you are. Ultimately, if you coming back to figuring out actually what makes you happy and taking more steps to move towards that. And I think that was the hardest part for me at that point as well, was that I sort of blew it all up because I was really unhappy, but I didn't know like what was next. And I didn't know what was going to happen. And I just sort of came home and licked my wounds that I'd, worked my way so far in the fashion industry. And, from the outside perspective, I was super successful. Like, I was smashing life, but I was so miserable because it was just so misaligned with who I was and all of my values and that sort of thing. And then to be able to be like, okay, I'm just going to come home and I'm not happy, and the judgment that comes from, every person that thinks that they know you from that as well, parental thoughts about, you throwing away your life because you've decided to move home from this successful career that you've had and things like that. And thankfully, my parents were super supportive, but there's always that wonder, isn't there, of that like little judgment of, especially because they helped finance me through university and all of that sort of thing. There's a part of me that always felt that I was, like letting them down as well. And so actually I was just, that point was such a pivotal point for me, I think, because I had trusted my gut with, this isn't right for me anymore, and I just need to stop doing it and rethink it. And actually that was a catalyst for me doing everything else that I've done since, just really leaning into trusting my gut, trusting my intuition, and being okay with standing by those decisions that I've made as well, not necessarily always making the right decision, because who does that, but sort of.
Ooh, I love that.
Standing by those decisions and being like, that was the right decision for me at the time. And yeah, okay, it may not have panned out and it may not have been, the thing that I was working towards, but actually that was a really solid decision in me moving on to this, or giving me this experience so that I can move on to something else. And that doesn't always mean that those experiences are good, but I think it just helps build your life story, right?
Well, it helps you build your confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
Like when you're like, okay, yeah, I chose this. Maybe it wasn't quite where I actually wanted to go, but where was the sunshine in it? What did I learn? How did I grow? And how did it help me find the place I actually do want to go?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey guys, I just want to take a second to let you know that my debut album, which is also called Seeking Sunshine, is coming out on May 23rd. This has been like a year and a half in the making, and my whole heart and soul has been poured into this work. It's jazzy and theatrical and a little bit pop, and it explores some really complex emotions. These songs they're fun and they're catchy, but when you really listen to the lyrics, they're gonna make you think, and they're gonna help you feel emotions that maybe you haven't been letting yourself feel. The goal of the whole album and of this whole thing is to help you really understand your innate worth, to help you find peace in the chaos of life, and then to witness suffering with hope and compassion. I've been through a lot, and I hope that as you listen to this album, that you can feel that you can see your own struggles in these songs and be able to work through everything you've been through and come out hopeful on the other side. So anyways, I have a really great exclusive offer for anybody who pre-orders the album. You're going to get access to printable lyric posters for each of the songs on the album when it comes out. I'm so excited for this offer, you guys. They're amazing. They are beautiful, inspirational visuals that will lift your spirit every time you see them. And I highly encourage you to do this pre-order offer so that you can look at these gorgeous posters while you're listening to the album, because it's going to help deepen the experience for you so much. So if you want to pre-order this album, you can do that now at karaleiggarrison.com/pre-order. And I also want to point out, I think it's so interesting as you were talking about like your parents, and it's like, we come from, generations, I can't talk, generations, I still can't talk, generations and generations of parents and their parents and their parents who were just taught and told to suck it up and keep going. And then they got to the end of their lives and they're like, I feel like I threw my life away. I feel like I didn't do anything I actually wanted to do. I feel like I let all of my talents and joys and desires just fall by the wayside. And so we're seeing that now in our current generation of our parents who are disappointed with how their lives have turned out. And it's like, oh, hey, we don't want to do that. We don't want to keep that cycle going. And we don't want that for our kids. And we don't want that for the future. We need people who are fulfilled and happy.
Right, absolutely, yeah. And I think as well, what is really important to realize in every part of that as well is that the world that they grew up in is not the same as the world that we grew up in. It's not the same world that our kids are growing up in. It is completely different. And although that we can revert back to those experiences that we had, perhaps they are 20 plus years in the past, and you can't actually, if you think back to what it was like back then versus what it's like now, actually your experiences aren't comparable in a lot of things. You can still relate, but actually they are completely different situations.
Oh man, and how much the world has changed in the last, 20 years for sure, but even in the last 10 years, like it is astonishing how different the world is now than just
so much.
not very long ago.
Yeah, and I think that's it, like not having that life experience. And I think it's all well and good, hindsight is a wonderful thing with stuff as well. But actually, I think it is a really good thing to trust yourself more and to trust that intuition more, and to be willing to make mistakes and not, hang everything up on something being the right or wrong thing for you, like getting more comfortable with making mistakes and being like, okay, that didn't work out, like what's next? Or okay, that didn't quite work the way that I wanted to.
And the thing with hindsight, it's like we say hindsight is 2020, and it really is. And it's so great to be able to look back and learn, lessons from our lives. But the reason that that's so important is so that we can implement those lessons now in the decisions we're making now. So like we had this kind of big terrible thing happen in our family, and I was like, and it was completely out of my control just like a couple days ago. My kids' therapy was like canceled out of the blue, and I was like, like what is happening? Like I can't control this. There's nothing I can do about it. And for several days, I was just like devastated by it. But then I had this thought this morning of like, okay, this is just another thing, and I can choose to let this be my life being guided. I can choose to let this be like, okay, here's what happened. Maybe there's something good in it. Instead of going, in a year going, oh, I see how that was good for me. Maybe now in this moment, I can be like, okay, maybe I can open my mind up now instead of in a year now to the possibility that maybe this could be good for me. Maybe this could be
Yeah.
good for us. And so that's why hindsight is so important, is because we want to implement those lessons now for the decisions we're making now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the easier it is to be able to see the strengths in how far you've come and what you've learned actually helps you move forward as well, because like not everything has gone really well actually, sort of from that pivotal moment. I then started my first business, which was a fashion business. I then ran that for nearly 5 years. So I started that in my parents' garage, and then sort of built it up to a team of 5. I was traveling internationally. I was doing basically the hybrid of my 2 passions. So I was doing fashion, but I was also playing roller derby at the time. So I mixed the 2 of them. So I basically made crazy sportswear for roller derby players.
That's amazing. Roller derby is like the coolest. If anyone doesn't know what that is, you have to go look it up. It's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. And I think that was one of the things that sort of helped me realize who I wanted to be and have confidence in being
Well, and
myself.
it's so powerful. Like, what powerful women, are doing roller derby. It's inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, like, it really helped me embrace the power of me. Like there were so many different players of different shapes, sizes, genders, that all had, everybody skated differently from each other. Like even if they were a similar size, they'd have a completely different skating style because they were a completely different person, but everybody had assets of why they were a good player. And actually that was one thing that really helped me and embrace body confidence and embrace my values and who I wanted to be as a person, but also be in an environment that supported that so wholeheartedly, rather than telling you who you should be and what you should be doing. It was really about leaning into your assets of how you could be a valuable team member, and learning to skate and pushing yourself in different directions and all of that sort of stuff. It was really challenging, but it really helped you embrace you as well.
Well, and I have to say, from a costume design perspective, from a fashion perspective, how cool to make those kind of costumes. Like, that's not just like designing suits and designing sweats and like whatever, like the people just like wear generically, right? Throughout their day. Like, that's exciting stuff to design.
Yeah, it was also like, so two of my bestsellers was cat's faces on leggings, like ridiculous cat leggings, and avocado leggings. They were also one of my bestsellers. They were the craziest things you have ever seen, and that was the good thing, is that whatever anybody wanted, that's what we designed and that's what we did. We made it completely inclusive. It was for anybody of any shape, size, gender, sort of how I wanted it to be for everybody, because it was all of these things that I felt was missing from my experience in working in corporate fashion. And as somebody who has service on their heart and just genuinely wants to help people, I had such good intentions with that business. But then ultimately, I wasn't doing anything that was different from the corporate job that I had had before. And that was another point where I was like, my gut was telling me that I was using all of my tools and all of the assets that I had and all of the experience that I had. But it still wasn't right. And I was listening to myself of like, this still doesn't feel right. And the first trap that I got into with that business was listening to what everybody told me that I should be doing, and just blindly going down that route of, oh, you should be doing this. So I went and did this. You should be doing this trade show that's thousands of pounds. And then you go and do it and it doesn't work out, and just sort of dealing with all of that. But don't get me wrong, there were really great successes with that as well as failures. And it was an emotional roller coaster as a first-time business owner as well.
Oh, I've actually kind of been there. I had my own business. Gosh, I was 18. and had a button jewelry business, and we'd go from show to show to show to show to show, and some of them were great and some of them were not, but it was the constant manufacturing, and that sucked, and I hated like I love designing it, but like the making everything, I was like, this is too monotonous for me. And then like, how do I, design my booths so that they stick out, and how do I price it, and how there's so much to it, and it's really exhausting, and it'll really burn you out
It
really
is. And I
fast.
think, especially with a product business as well, like not only do you have all of the stuff that you are making, but you're also then figuring out how to be a business owner, right? I mean, it's the same thing with coaches and having a service business and things as well. I still have to do stuff on as a service
There's
provider,
something
but
different about product-based
it
business
is
though.
next level.
It's like there's a difficulty level there when you just like, where do I store it? How do I do it? Like, it's just like, how do I ship it? Do I do online? How do I sold X, Y, and Z at the show, so then I have to make sure it's not available online, or I have to like, it's just, I feel like it's a lot more complicated than you
It
would
is.
ever like think of when you first go into it. And then you're like, oh, okay.
And then you've got all the business stuff on top of it as well. And all the things, like I was saying, people telling you what you should be doing. And as someone who's, fresh and green into that, taking people's advice rather than stopping and listening to yourself about whether that actually feels like the right thing for you to do, or something that you actually want to try, rather than feeling forced into a situation. And I think that, again, was like one of those pivotal moments where I was like, actually, the business is doing really great. I'm not. Like, why am I not doing great? Like, what's going on here? And for me, it was that genuine feeling of helping people and of being of service to people. Yes, I was offering something that nobody else was offering, but it wasn't fulfilling me, and it wasn't that sort of that deep connection with people that I was looking for.
Yeah, and it's so important, for I guess for people to realize, is that when you make decisions based on your own like intuition, it is so much easier to stick by them no matter what happens, than if those decisions were based on some advice you got or what you were supposed to do. Like those
Right,
ones, you're
absolutely.
like, I don't know how, people, yeah, it's, and you have to practice that throughout your life, like making those decisions based on what you really feel is right, because then no matter what, you can stick by it, because you're like, I knew that this was the right choice at the
Yeah,
time, and that'll get you through so many things. Like, that is resilience in a package.
absolutely. And I think, yeah, you've absolutely nailed the point on the head there, because, when it's something that you feel isn't right, your automatic response is like, I knew I shouldn't have done that. And actually, having the courage to stop and think about what you actually want before you move forward in it, rather than just doing it because somebody is telling you that you should be doing it. Having that confidence and that courage to actually be like, actually, do you know what? I love that you're having success with that, but that doesn't feel right with me. And that's totally okay. Whether that is business related or personally related, being able to sort of stand by, this is how I'm feeling, really listening to your intuition, and moving forward from that as well. Like, it is such a gift. And I think we don't embrace it enough, because we've been conditioned not to, right? We've been conditioned to just follow all of the steps and the plans and the things. And actually, in my experience, every time I have gone against something and gone to do what somebody has told me that I should be doing, or told me that I need to do, rather than coming back to my intuition, it's either hasn't worked out, or I haven't learned my lesson from it. Whereas at least with when I do it intuitively, I'm like, okay, well, that didn't work out, and that didn't work out for this, but I understand why I made those decisions in that moment, and that was the right thing for me in that moment. So I'm learning from it and I'm moving on, rather than just having that negative, like, oh, dang, like I knew I shouldn't have trusted that person. And then all of the negative sort of connotations that come with that as well.
Yeah, it really builds your self-confidence when you trust yourself. When you listen
Yeah.
to yourself, that's how you build your self-confidence. That's a yeah.
Yeah. And I think we don't put enough, as a culture, I think we don't put enough power into ourselves. Like, it's so much easier to seek outside counsel and trust outside things, because you've got experts and you've got people, you know, selling you how to do all of these things. But actually, you know, having that clarity and confidence in moving forward first, to try things and to be, you know, curious about things and not be attached to the outcome too much as well, feels a lot more natural and a lot more connected, I think, to help you get towards that happiness, rather than constantly looking for something outside of yourself to do that. So I feel like I'm rambling now. Am I making
No,
sense
I
to
think
you?
you got it. I think you totally got it. And it occurs to me, I'm like, what's the first thing we do when stuff starts going crazy? We're like, what do I do? What do I do? Somebody tell me, what do I do? And what we should maybe be doing is asking ourselves, what do I do? And when we're like, I don't know what to do, then we need to sit still with the question of, okay, everything's okay. It's going to be okay. This is just another thing, and we're going to get through this. What do I do?
Yeah. And what do I need,
And what do I
right?
need?
Because in that
Right.
moment as well, it's, you know, what do I need to, either, you know, is it to sit still and to feel that pain and
Yeah.
that uncertainty? Is it to take action, you know, actually coming back to self and being like, okay, is now the time to act? Yes or no? You know, trusting what your gut and your heart and your head are telling you, and sort of moving forward from that, rather than that blind panic of, oh, I'm gonna do all of the things and hope that something works out, you know. And so that kind of brought me on
Yes.
to making the decision to sell my first business. So I came back to it and was like, okay, what do I need? And the answer was, I needed meaningful connection. I needed, you know, not to just sell a pair of leggings to somebody at a trade show that I would never see again. I actually genuinely wanted to help people and have that connection with people. So I then started working with local makers, because that felt right, still, you know, as part of the business that I was doing, but just sort of really immersing myself into the community and sort of being myself, but seeing what else was out there, you know. And that actually really beautifully brought me on to moving into branding, because I started working with other businesses. We did the first ever local makers department store in Cardiff city centre, where there were 30 odd makers, where we visually merchandised everything. We did it for a whole month. It was super tough work, but it was so successful, and we were really, really proud of what we did. But naturally, then people were coming and saying, oh, you know, your brand looks amazing, and it looks like you're doing really well, and you're so like, or doing all the visual merchandising just comes so naturally to me. And I was like, well, yeah, of course, because I've had 10 plus years experience of that in fashion. So all of that is just my skill set, my knowledge base. It just comes so naturally to me. Let me help you with that. And then somebody would help you with something that was their natural skill set. And so the more that I ended up trusting that, and trusting and leaning into what felt good and what felt, you know, that lit me up, that wasn't always, you know, chasing money or hitting a certain income figure and things like that, but actually just trusting that what I was enjoying would evolve into that sort of thing as well. Just then beautifully led me into working with other businesses into branding, and sort of
Which is
how that comes through.
amazing. That's so cool. And what's coming to my mind is like how perfectly branding fits into your fashion experience, because fashion is all about branding yourself, like what you wear, what you choose to, how you express yourself to the world is your own like personal brand. And you deep dive into that in the fashion world constantly,
Yeah.
especially with like roller derby. Like that's, you really get a chance to show who you are through your clothing. And so now you're going, well, how do you show who you are through your logo? How do you show who you are through what you're putting out on the internet? And so that it fits
Yeah,
so
just
well.
fits beautifully, right? And I think that's it as well, you know, not just as well as the personal side of things, you know, discovering who you are and embracing that, and helping to get people to know you, because after all, that's what businesses do, right? But also from the business point of view, from working in such a, a global brand, global brands as well in the fashion industry, you see how the big boys do it, right? You see the process that they all go through, and the importance of values, the importance of brand foundations, the importance of always making sure that yourself and your team are coming back to that experience that you're trying to create, looking at ideal customers, who you're designing for. All of that applies to every shape of business, every, which way of that. And actually that then sort of triggered me to move into intuitive branding, where listening to your intuition and helping to build businesses that are more intuitively aligned, because you are a unique individual, your business is unique. You can be the same business as another business, hair or nails or buttons or anything. There's plenty of other people doing, inverted commas, the same thing as you, but nobody is going to do it the way that you do it. And also, as an individual, your wants and desires and goals that you have are going to be different from somebody else's, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I think that is the hard part, is working out as a small business owner as well, that your business isn't you, but it is a part of you, and it doesn't have to be you, it doesn't have to be all consuming, but it has come from you. It's another child. But actually embracing that and coming back to why you did it, and the passion, and trusting yourself in what feels right and what doesn't, to move forward in that, not just in business but in life as well, sort of helps you be more okay with the decisions that you're making, and willing to take decisions and take action to see if it works, because you've trusted yourself and you've trusted your gut. And yeah, absolutely learn from other people, but use those as toolkits rather than what you should be doing, or something that you need, or the only way to do something, because there's never only one way to do something.
I love that. That's awesome. Guys, I just wanted to pause here for 1 second to let you know about the awesome thing that I'm doing right now. I'm so excited to announce that I'm offering a custom song experience for a small number of people. This is your chance to take your story, your podcast, or your business even, and turn it into a incredible, timeless work that will bring back beautiful, loving emotions for decades to come. This is such a perfect gift for your spouse, for a newborn baby, or for a parent, and it's a really great way to embody your business or your podcast's mission. We're going to meet together several times and deep dive into the message and emotion you want to convey, to make sure that you're getting something that you absolutely adore. A custom song is an incredible asset for advertising, for lifting team spirit, and for encapsulating family memories. You can schedule a clarity call with me at calendly.com/KaraleighGarrison/clarity call. The link for that is also in the show notes, and it's gonna be amazing. I'm so excited to work with you. So you've had a lot of dark, moments in there of that journey. It's definitely like a roller coaster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of a ride.
Yeah, and I think it's not being afraid of that either. After I after I sold my first business, I had literally 3 months where I laid on the sofa and watched Netflix, because I was so mentally and physically exhausted from what came from that, from the emotional side of selling a business, from giving all of that up, but also accepting that once again in my life I was blowing everything up to go in a different direction. And even though there is a tone of having, it's all design related in a way, actually when you are in it, it feels like such a massive shift that you are literally just looking into the abyss of a canyon, and you don't know what is coming next. But in my experience, trusting your intuition and trusting self enables you to move on to the next thing, rather than sort of staying where you are and staying miserable, or blaming other people for the situations that you are in, or it just allows you to move through the darkness, I think, into that next stage, and knowing that it's not always gonna be like that. And I think that is the hard thing to navigate sometimes, especially when you don't know if the darkness is going to end as well. That can be really tough. But I was just here to share my story of trust yourself and trust your intuition, because I've absolutely come out of the other end with this, and now that I'm doing exactly what I love doing, that lights me up, that feels right, and helping people in that way, still doesn't mean that I don't have days where I want to hide under a blanket and and have a different life or anything. But it does mean that I am happy and content with the decisions that I have made to get me to this point, and it's just another step in the journey, rather than it being this is it now, I'm done, sort of thing.
Oh, I love your story. Your story's amazing. So to me, the sunshine in all this is learning how to trust yourself. And that's something that we all like really desperately need to learn how to do. Like, trust that it's going to be okay. Trust that there is light at the end of that tunnel, even if you can't see it yet. Just keep taking a couple more steps, and trust that within the next few steps, at some point, you're going to see that light, even if you are still surrounded by darkness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, really just trusting that yourself, and it's ultimately your decision whether you take action or you don't take action. And I think being okay with not taking action and being like, actually, do you know what? No, I'm not in a space where I can move forward from this right now. I'm acknowledging that I need this time, and I need to go through this, and I need to feel this to move on, to move through it, versus I'm ready to move forward now. It's so important, I think, and we get conditioned into head down, push through, work through it. But we don't always need that. There's so much conditioning that we've had that tells us to do the right way of doing things. But as we've already talked about, if you go and speak to if you could speak to yourself 10 years ago or 20 years ago, speak to your parents, your grandparents, your great grandparents, they've got all of that wisdom to share with you, of ultimately do what feels good to help move you forward, rather than listening to what everyone tells you that you should be doing, because you're responsible for your happiness. The people that are telling you what you should be doing, they don't care whether you're happy or not. They're just there to, so that they can tick a box. And actually, who is there taking count? Who is there holding you accountable to all of these things? The only person that is accountable for you is yourself. And I think that's the thing, is that the more that you feel that you can trust yourself, that you can trust your judgment, and you can take credit for the things that you have done, both good and bad, it helps you move more into that, into more sunshine, and having sunshine more often than those darker days.
Absolutely. And that's the thing with seeking sunshine, is we're not always in sunshine. We're not always in that bright, sparkly, happy place, but we're always looking for it. So even when we're in the darkness, it's like, it's there. I just need to keep my eyes open and my heart open to those little, sometimes they're just little teeny, glittery sparkles that like come by, where it's like, maybe I'll learn something from this really hard lesson. Maybe there's something eventually good that can come out of this. But keeping our hearts open to the sunshine is essential.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if there isn't anything to learn from it, just being proud that you've been through it, right? You survived, you're still here standing to fight another day, and just sort of, I think we don't have enough credit in that sometimes.
Absolutely. Well, and then we can also be like, other people have gone through these things. Maybe just having gone through it, I can be a compassionate shoulder for somebody else who's going through it. Like, there doesn't have to be something good in the hard thing, just that maybe I can use it in a good way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that, especially as someone who wants to help other people as well, being able to help people through the experiences so that they can learn faster and move on faster, and get to places quicker because they've got your experience as a point of reference and something to try for themselves as well, actually feels like a really good thing as well, because then you feel like you haven't gone through it for nothing as well.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us how we can follow you, how we can, I don't know, learn more about your business and all the things.
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram handle is Grimm Design, so GRIMM designs.ltd. So there's loads of information there, not just about branding, but also about that trust, about that clarity of self and moving forward. I also have a free guided visualization, which helps connect you to your future self, so that you can ask yourself those questions and stay aligned with what you're working towards, connect to your past, connect to your future, and sort of help have more clarity and confidence in self. And then if you want to check out my work and things as well, it's grimdesigns.co.uk.
Awesome. Well, that's amazing. How can we get the you said it was a meditation?
Yes.
Yes, because I'm really excited for
So
that.
that is on the website. So if you go on the homepage, if you go all the way to the bottom, there's free resources at the bottom, and the guided visualization is on there as well. So it's about 12 minutes. It's nice and calm, and it's got some of those action points as well to ask you what you need in the immediate to move forward. So you can go and listen to it time and time again to help you move forward in your intuitive decision making.
Oh, I love that. And I feel like that's so beneficial for everybody. Like that's just like something we all need to kind of embrace in our lives so that we can find more sunshine and find more happiness. Yay. So as we wrap up, is there any final like words of wisdom that you have for us?
I think just trust the power of your journey, because it is one of those things where, as you said earlier, you were like, my journey is so similar, but also so different, like it's, as humans, we're relatable, as we're always going to find connection, we're going to find similarities, and people love hearing other people's stories and other people's journeys, and we don't expect it to all be sunshine and rainbows. We expect some dark turns and some twists in the plot as well.
And those are the inspiring parts. Those are the parts where we're like, oh, I'm so glad that you're so happy all the time. I'm so glad that everything went great for you. No, we're really excited about, oh, you went through something hard. I've been through hard things. Oh,
Right, right. And I think that's it as well. As soon as somebody says, oh, like, and don't get me wrong, that I'm sure there are very blessed people in the world who have gone through very small amount of hardships. But actually, it's the tough times are the more relatable times, right? And it also means that you are an imperfect human, the same as everybody else, rather than, or if somebody says that they haven't been through hardships, you are definitely calling BS on that stuff as well, because everybody has trials and tribulations, and it's how you choose to deal with it and how you move forward from that to find your sunshine and help others find sunshine too.
yay, absolutely. It's so much. It's so important. Oh, I've just loved this conversation. You're such a light. You're so, I just love it. It's really coming back to yourself and learning how to trust yourself is just everything. Like that's the sunshine. Anyways, it has been so lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
You are so welcome. I hope that you have an amazing day.
You too. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Bye.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much, Kath. I feel like that deep dive into the process of like becoming who you really are is so inspirational, and it really helps me to realize that like it's okay to make mistakes along the way as long as you really own them and own your actions instead of letting other people's opinions and what other people think that you're supposed to do drive what you do. Because when you do that, it doesn't feel genuine. It doesn't feel like you. And then it's really hard to not, kick yourself later on. So I'm so excited that we got to share this episode with you. Kath is amazing. And here are my very favorite takeaways. Number 1,
It doesn't matter what your journey is. It's actually valuing everything you've learned from it and then using that to move forward. Number 2, actually, that was a catalyst for me doing everything I've done since. Just really leaning into trusting my gut, trusting my intuition, and being okay with standing by those decisions. Number 3, when you make decisions based on your own intuition, it is so much easier to stick by them no matter what happens than if those decisions were based on some advice you got or what you were supposed to do. Number 4, as a culture, we don't put enough power into ourselves. It's so much easier to seek outside counsel and trust outside things. Number 5, there's plenty of other people doing the same thing as you, but nobody is going to do it the same way you do it. Number 6, there's never only one way to do something. Number 7, trusting your situation and trusting yourself allows you to move on to the next thing. Number 8, trust that it's going to be okay. Trust that there is light at the end of the tunnel, even if you can't see it yet. Just keep taking a couple more steps and trust that you're going to see that light, even if you're surrounded by darkness. Number 9, trust the power of your journey. And number 10, everybody has trials and tribulations, and it's how you choose to deal with it and how you move forward from that you find sunshine and help others find sunshine too. I loved this episode. It was so beautiful. You can find Kath on Instagram at Grimm Designs with 2 M's .ltd or on her website Grimm with 2 M's grimmdesigns.co.uk. Make sure you check out her free guided visualization that's at the bottom of her website because it is beautiful. You can also find more from me at KaraleigHgarrison.com and feel free to reach out at seekingsunshinepodcast@gmail.com. You can also schedule a clarity call for a custom song at calendly.com/KaraleigHgarrison/clarity call. Thank you so much for coming on today. I hope that you have an absolutely incredible day. I hope that this lifted your spirits and helped you realize that even when you struggle, you're on a path that is for your better good. You're on a path to joy and freedom and beauty. And I just love that outlook. I love finding the sunshine even when life looks really tough. So I'm going to leave you with that for today, and I hope you enjoy this song. It's called Roller Coaster, and it's going to be on my upcoming album. Did you enjoy this episode? You can support this podcast by leaving a review and sharing it with friends and family. It would be awesome for you to text it to somebody or share it on social media, and let's just spread more sunshine because the world really, really needs it. Do you have an amazing story to share? I would love to have you on the show. Please email me at seekingsunshinepodcast@gmail.com to schedule an interview.
I heard it would be worth it, but still I hesitate. So many just enjoy the ride, but that's not how I feel inside. Up, down, just wanna touch the ground. Up, down, I don't feel safe or sound. Going against gravity. Is this how life is supposed to be? I've got to learn how to let go, but I cannot help but fight for control on this roller coaster. This roller coaster. Forcefully it's pulling, constraining violently. So long I felt the pain, wondered if I'm going insane. These bars down, I don't feel safe or sound. Going against gravity. Is this how life is supposed to be? I've got to learn how to let go, but I cannot help but fight for control on this roller coaster. This roller coaster. There's pain pressing on my chest. I'm trying my best. I know I'm supposed to endure, but how, I'm not quite sure. Alone, it feels unfair. Is anyone there? Suddenly I see the one who rides with me. Up, down, just wanna touch the ground. Up, down, I don't feel safe or sound. Going against gravity. Is this how life is supposed to be? I've got to learn how to let go, but I cannot help fight for control on this roller coaster, on this roller coaster.